your fitness business podcast snapshot. 3 key metrics to improve your fitness business in 2020. Action steps to achieve the result for each of those metrics, and tips to remain focused on your New Year's business resolutions. All of that and more coming up in today's show. Welcome to the industry's leading business podcast for fitness owners and managers. We'd like to thank this month's premier podcast partner, Team Rockstar Fit. Team Rockstar Fit is the award-winning mastermind group for women in fitness to expand their careers online in partnership with Beachbody. Don't get left behind in the industry. Get support, get online, and get ahead. Visit teamrockstarfit.com to schedule your free strategy session. Hi everyone, and welcome to the 5th and final episode in our New Year's resolution series. Over the last 4 weeks, you've heard shows on retention, customer service, group fitness, and finance. And now to complete the series, we are taking a broad look at business overall. My special guest for today's episode is the Chief Executive Officer and founding partner of Crunch Franchising, Ben Midgley. Ben is a 27-year veteran of the fitness industry and the only person in the industry to serve as the CEO and president of the 2 largest and fastest growing full-size, high-value, low-price franchises. Ben has led the growth of Crunch Franchising from concept to one of the largest and fastest growing companies in the industry and is regularly featured in prominent business publications and programming. He co-authored with his father the book Golden Circle Secrets, and on release, it reached the #1 ranking on Amazon.com for sales management and customer service books. He's also a contributing writer to Forbes.com. I cannot wait for you to hear the great business advice and insights that Ben shares with us today. We're about to transition into this week's interview, but first, thank you to our podcast partner, Team Rockstar Fit. Do you want to lead a happy and balanced life with your career in fitness? Team Rockstar Fit offers mentoring and support to expand your business online with tools from Beachbody. Earn money out of the trenches. Visit teamrockstarfit.com. We're starting this week's interview with Ben sharing 3 key areas we should focus on in the year ahead. And during our chat, we actually began speaking about sales, but as you're going to hear, the conversation naturally flowed into a broader business focus. So there is a huge scope of information that you're about to hear today. I am so thrilled to share this interview with you all. Here's what Ben had to say.
I would say if you want to be good at sales, the first thing you have to commit to is tracking your statistics. Mm-hmm. And statistics, I mean, how many phone calls are coming into the club on a daily basis? How many walk-ins are coming into the clubs? And how many closes are you getting from those walk-ins, right? Those sound like incredibly basic topics. And anyone in the industry would probably listen to that and say, yeah, well, really, that guy's been in the industry 30 plus years and that's all he came up with. But when you oversee as many clubs as I do, and I have been in the past, you will find that everyone says they do that. But when you show up at the club and you say, run me through your last 30 days of telephone inquiries, run me through your last 30 days of walk-ins and your closing ratio. Okay, now let's then look at the sourcing from all those calls that came in. What was the way they heard about the club? And where is that logged and where is that saved? Because if you don't track your marketing, you can't spend your marketing properly. What about the walk-ins? How did they hear about the club? What did they tell you? What did you learn from that? Where did you write that down? How have you modified your marketing because of that? And then on your closing ratio, okay, for all these people who didn't close, and everybody inflates their closing ratio, we know that. What is the follow-up path that these people are going through? How many of those are in a drip campaign? How many of those are getting, a follow-up on their birthday from when they signed the guest register? Are you, approaching them in any way, shape, or form, or have they become a missed sale and you've never followed up with them? So, stat tracking is incredibly important. Benchmarking is essential. as well. Year over year, same store sales comps. I mean, you really have to look at what did you do the prior month? What did you do the prior year? How does that work in comparison? You have to be incredibly passionate about the selling that you're doing, right? You have to be committed to it, and not just in making the sale. You've got to be committed to the people you're selling to. I mean, one of the reasons, if I go way back, I won Salesperson of the Year in, I think it was 1996, was because not only did I sell a lot of memberships, but I would go into the center of the club and I would practice naming every single person in the club. And if I didn't know the name of any one member in that club at any given time, I'd go to the front desk and I'd say, hey, do you see that person down there? Do you know them? What's their name? Or if they didn't know, I'd go talk to the group fitness instructor or a trainer or something, until basically at any point in the day, I knew everyone in that club. And then it became very easy to find someone new. If they came in, then you go up and introduce yourself to them. And then if you're a really intuitive salesperson and you watch your members and interact with them, you start to understand their social circles. So if Chantel comes into the club, I'm going to see who she's talking with every day. And at some point, I'm going to make sure I'm in contact with everyone in that particular social circle. And I'm certainly going to ask them if they ever need anything to let me know, or if they want to bring a friend in, be sure to let me know. Or I'll maybe offer a little bit of help, some pointers on some exercise equipment or something like that. And that just generates all that positive talk about you as a person within your club, right? And a lot of times you get these new salespeople, maybe they're not getting a lot of walk-ins or they don't know where to start. Start in the club. Start with your members. Be that person that everybody feels good about. And what people don't realize too is, health clubs, everybody sees what people are doing, right? And they form opinions of the staff in the club just based on their interactions. And I'll give you a quick example, and then I'll zip it on this particular subject. But I remember being at a World Gym, and I don't mind saying their name, years and years ago when I was younger and I was working out. I was a salesperson at another club at this time. And I remember the manager of the club would walk out with these trays of water, and he would stop at every pretty girl's treadmill and offer her water. And then he'd just keep walking by the rest of the people in the gym. And it didn't really seem to make much sense to me. But that's an extreme example, right? No one would ever consider doing that now. But people will watch, how you interact with other members, right? If people see you only hanging out with the big weightlifters, they're going to think, well, you're the person who only talks to weightlifters. If they see you talking to just a certain group of friends, they're going to feel that's your clique. So you've got to be in the club. You've got to be the mayor of the club. You got to keep generating that community feel. And in doing so, you're doing so with a purpose, not just because you're genuinely, interested in everybody, but you're also genuinely in driving your book of business. And it's amazing what you can do when you're selling from a relationship basis, if that makes sense.
FBP family, just to quickly summarize those 3 areas that Ben just mentioned. Focus number 1 was tracking statistics. Number 2 is benchmarking, and specifically we're going to be talking about KPIs. And number 3 is a focus on the people in your business. Now, before we break those down into some more detail, I first wanted to give you a little bit of a behind the scenes of a daily ritual that Ben does. Each day when he arrives in at work, he allocates time to review the business numbers for every single club in the Crunch family. Every club. So it's unsurprising that tracking statistics came in at top of the list for today. So with that in mind, I asked Ben to talk us through the importance of tracking our business numbers and share with us some examples of the areas that he reviews.
When I come into the office, even though we've got 300 plus clubs, the first thing I do is I open the stat sheet for the entire company and I scroll through every individual club tab by tab, and I look at every line in terms of important KPIs for each of those clubs. And I'm just walking through this as this would be something a club manager or club owner would do as well. So every day you want to see what your membership mix is. Most clubs nowadays have different priced memberships. So you want to make sure the mix of those memberships is getting you an average monthly dues amount that is within your targeted range. And you should have ranges that you're striving for. Sometimes clubs don't, but you should have a targeted average dues that you're trying to hit, because then it's very easy to forecast how many members you need to get your club to whatever profit level that you want to have it in. We have upgrades and downgrades within the clubs. So you want to track those. Are those giving you a positive net dues add or a net dues loss? You want to check your ratios online. What percentage of sales are you making online, as well as your membership mix within that. And then you have to look at your digital strategy. How are you selling online, bringing people from page to page and helping them through the buying decision that maybe gets them into not only the right membership for them, but the right membership for your business. How many cancellations are you having? And why are those folks canceling? Are you just tracking because they moved, or they got a new job somewhere else, which is, probably, half of all cancellations, people just say they're moving. Or is there a customer service issue, a cleanliness issue, something going on with the club? Are you surveying any of those members when they cancel so you can find out what the real issues are with the club? Because, retention is probably the hardest issue in our industry, but if you're letting too many memberships slip out the back door, then it makes you're selling that much harder. Then, of course, what is your net dues add? Your monthly dues tap is your most important revenue line. So you want to make sure that's really always increasing, if at all possible. And of course, you have seasonal fluctuations, and depending on what part of the world you're in, those seasons are different, but you have to plan on that all the time. And you have to break down your revenue lines. How much cash is coming in from upfront deposits on memberships? How much cash are you bringing in from the front desk, whether it's retail sales or drinks or supplements or what have you, and you need to be tracking that. What about personal training? And what types of packages are you selling? Are you selling cash-based packages, half-hour sessions, hour sessions? Are you billing on EFT? What percentage of EFT is your total revenue for PT? Annual fees, how's that coming in? How's your dues tap? What percentage of your dues tap are you collecting? And then you get your overall daily income. And then that's going to total up to your monthly totals and so on and so forth. But you've got to have goals on virtually all of those categories and benchmarks so you can understand if the plan you're executing is appropriate. And then beyond that, obviously, the next most important stats you have to watch is your P&L. We could talk P&Ls all day long, but if you're a new club, obviously the first goal is get to break even, and then then to move into the black. And if you're an existing club, obviously you want to try and have your year-over-year comps always improving, which is what we talked about earlier.
Ben, that was such an amazing summary. I'm interested to understand, because you do that check on a daily basis, how long would you generally dedicate to doing that each day?
Well, if you're a multi-unit operator, right? If you have 5 clubs or 10 clubs or 20 clubs, it's going to take you minutes, in all honesty. If you have hundreds of clubs, then what you look for is, like you said earlier, irregular. I don't even know what the word I'm looking for there. Maybe you can edit in the proper word that I was trying to say. Irregularities. There you go. So I sound a little smoother.
Yep, we got that one.
You can cruise down through a stat report, and anything that pops out, if a club has an abnormal amount of dues increase or an abnormal amount of dues loss, or they have 150 memberships sold, but the net dues add doesn't quite add up. Those are the things that catch your eye pretty quickly when you're scanning through the clubs, and then you dig in on that particular club. If you see a club, you'd be amazed how much you remember from the day's prior stat, even if it's 300 clubs or 400 clubs, or what have you. So if you see any kind of change in those particular lines, then it's very easy to go into the stat sheet and see if something happened. And then if something happened, positive or negative, then you just lob a call into either the club directly, check with the ownership, or one of the directors of a business unit that is overseeing the clubs, and try to find out a little bit more. And a lot of times, you'll find good news. There was a big spike in memberships on Tuesday. What did they do? Well, they tried this promotion. They've never done that before. Well, that's fantastic. Why don't we take that? Let's package it up. Let's get it out to the rest of the network so everybody knows that this works.
Fantastic. So that is our section on tracking statistics. So we're going to now move into metric number 2 and have a look at benchmarking. And specifically, the area that I'd like to focus on in this section is the KPIs for our business. So do you have any advice or actions that we should consider when it comes to KPIs in our fitness business?
Yeah, I think probably, beyond what we talked about earlier, I think what's really important is, getting everyone in your club rowing in the same direction. Doesn't happen as often as you think. And in most clubs, you can usually spot it right off the bat when you walk into a club. Is this a finely tuned, well-run organization, or is this kind of your average health club just kind of doing their thing? I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. but almost instantly when you walk in, you can assess, generally how good a club's doing. From a KPI perspective, though, it really comes down to communication from either the ownership or the manager down to the team, right? So if it's your production team, whether that's, front desk from the retail and or, supplement or just, ancillary sales side, it all adds up to your membership sales team. They need to know what is the cash goal, what is the net dues increase. It's always important to focus on net dues increase too, not just, gross dues, right? Which is your new sales minus your cancellations, because what your net dues increase does is that adds to your dues line. That's what you're going to end up billing the next month, and that's your primary increase in revenue. So they have to have that target, which also gives them a bit of a focus on cancellations, which are which are tricky to manage depending on your retention approach. But you have to be cognizant of it. What is the promotion that you're running this month, right? What is it that you're closing out? How do you want people to talk about that? Are there any other promotions? Are there 2 or 3 promotions, right? You want to make sure everyone's crystal clear and everyone can explain those well. You don't want them hacking their way through their sales presentation because you're spending all those marketing dollars just to get people to come into your gym. Generally, their first impression with the gym is somebody they meet at the front desk or then the salesperson. And if they blow that, they're really lessening your chances that those marketing dollars are going to turn out to drive what you want them to drive. And then what is the marketing? What's the look and the feel? What's the piece? Are you going to be online? Is it social? Is it direct mail? Is it TV? Is it radio? Make sure the team knows what the marketing is that's driving people into the clubs. And, the overall goal, total cash, total units sold, the dues increase, the cancels, PT, total revenue, all that, make sure everyone's in line. And then that gives you license to have the check-ins over the course of the week or the month. I mean, don't be the micromanager or the seagull that just flies around and shits on everybody, right? You want to come in and check up on things that need to be checked up on and then offer the, a little advice or a little support or a little encouragement going forward. And, generally, if you get the team into that type of a routine, then you can start to, focus on sort of some consistent performance initiatives and then just build upon that. And you essentially, spend a little time getting everybody organized around it. It's like rolling the snowball up the hill. And once you get to the top, it's going to have its own momentum rolling down and makes your life much easier.
Right up front, you were saying one of the keys when it comes to the success of our business is obviously the people and the passion that they have for what they do and the people that they work with. And I just want to go back to the example that you gave earlier when you were saying when you were in the club environment, you were doing sales, you'd stand in the middle of the room and test yourself on knowing, the names of every single person who's in that club. So when we think about that particular topic of people and being passionate about what we do, what actions can we take as a club owner or a manager to ensure that everything is working well within our business and that we're really looking after people within our business?
Yeah, that's never an easy one too, right? Because, so many things happen in a club in a day that pull you in a different direction. The tanning bed breaks, or you've got a leak in the locker room, or there's some sort of member service issue, or a kid snuck out of the childcare. Hopefully that doesn't happen too often.
I hope not.
But anything can happen, right? It's day-to-day. So, I think as an operator of the club, first and foremost, if you set the right, cultural feel within the business, not to sound cliche, but where people have, a mindset of responsibility and ownership. Not that you have to empower people to say, look, you have the authority to cure any customer service issue up to $2,500. It's really not that. But if you get people to, and that's from like a book on Ritz Carlton service, you know what I mean? But if people are there and they know that, taking care of a member or a situation in the club, whether it be, a critical situation, like somebody's had a heart attack or something like that, down to just your standard member service problem, owning it, then you're really ahead of the game, right? And it sounds pretty general, but, unless you're Disney, right, or you're in the military, you generally don't have a bulletproof book of SOPs, and this very, very long culture of making sure everybody gets it and understands it and adheres to it. So, getting that sort of ownership mentality as best you can and mentality of responsibility to your staff is is a really big advantage if you can do that. And then, training folks as much as you can. But I'm just saying that with a little hesitation because as an independent club owner, it's tricky to do sometimes, right? There's only one of you and one top person. And to make it a priority on top of making hitting your numbers a priority and keeping the club clean, sometimes it's a little tough for the independent operators. So hire the right people, give them that, encourage them to have that ownership mentality, and then, do the best you can to make sure everybody knows their job functions. And then also try to create kind of a culture of making sure people have opportunity to go up the ladder, right? You don't want to keep people in the same positions for too long. They're going to get stale. So as best you can, try to keep people promoted and finding new ways for them to, grow in their positions. And then also as an operator, don't ever get to the place where you feel like you kind of have everything sewn up. I mean, I've been in the industry 30 plus years and I've learned from a lot of tremendous people. And, I learn a lot from the people I work with, above me and below me every day. And you just always have to be open to understanding you don't know everything and you're a constant learner, and you'll figure it out.
Get your pen ready now for Keep Me's Fit Bizpiration.
For this week's Keep Me Fit Bizpiration, I asked Ben to leave us with 3 tips to ensure that you set yourself up personally for a successful 2020. Here's what he had to say.
Yeah, it's always hard to narrow it down to 3, right? Just 3 things of all the things you can do. So let me give it a shot here. So I would say on a personal level, you have to, first of all, take care of yourself. You got to physically, mentally, nutritionally, you got to get a lot of sleep. Just take care of yourself so you function right. You keep your energy up, and you can really, accomplish the things that you need to, both physically and mentally, because you're going to be taxed every day, and you don't want to, work yourself into a hole. So 1, it would be take care of yourself, keep your energy up. 2 is, I guess I'd say is be contemplative and reflective. So that just means if you're going to take on an initiative, really think that through, right? Think of the best case scenario, the mid case scenario, the worst case scenario, right? Hope for the best, plan for the worst. So really think about what you're doing. Anytime you have a lot of strategy, don't be too complicated, don't be too simple, even though simple is good. But make sure you question everything that you're doing, not to the point that you're, paralysis by analysis, but to the point that you feel you're 80% there, and then run with it, and then be reflective. After you've gone after something, look back. Don't be afraid to say, I screwed that one up, right? Or I did this wrong, or, I gave great instruction, but my team didn't do it wrong. So what could I have done better to help my team through that? So be contemplative and reflective. And then thirdly, just, get after it, right? You've really got to want to achieve success to be successful, and then do it with focus and purpose. Right? Don't you want to set goals? Sometimes you want to set goals that are, those big, hairy, audacious goals, the bags. But sometimes you just need, a line of specific intervals that you're going to run after. And once you achieve them, you can check that off. And that constant checking off of your interval goals, allows you to feel that momentum, and you are gaining more success, and it helps kind of propel you to that next step. So, get after it with focus and purpose. I'd say those would be the 3.
What a great way to round up our interview today. Well, Ben, thank you so much for joining us. It was such a pleasure chatting to you. I feel like we really covered so much scope within business, and thank you for kicking off our 2020 in great style. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ben.
Thank you for having me.
Keep Me, smarter member retention. KeepMe.ai.
Thank you once again to Ben, and now here's a message from our podcast partner, One Fit Stop. We'd like to thank our sponsor, One Fit Stop, for their support, and we highly recommend all fitness professionals go to onefitstop.com to find out how their software will enable you to take control of day-to-day management in your fitness business. One Fit Stop's scheduling, client management, programming, and payment collection tools will set your business up for success.
Precore Quickfire 5.
This week's Precore Quickfire 5 guest is Chief Catalyst for Catalyst Growth Advisors, Bill Flynn. Bill, a very warm welcome along. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start things off with our pre-call quickfire 5. Tell us, why do you do what you do?
I think it's a shame that great ideas, great businesses, and great people struggle and or fail for completely preventable reasons.
And I think that's given us a little hint as to what we're going to talk about in the main interview. And tell us, what's one ritual that helps you become better at what you do?
Basically, I'm a teacher, so learning things is important and being able to articulate them. So I write a lot. I write a blog 2 times a month, and it's typically on topics that are relative to what I do, and that really helps me sort of absorb and be able to pull things in when I need them.
Great. We'll have to make sure that we get a link to your blog so that we can direct the FBP family there to take a look and subscribe. And tell us, are there any apps or systems that you use to stay in control of your workload?
Yeah, so I'm a bit of a organizer and such. So I actually created my own system, mostly based on stuff from Stephen Covey and Hiram Smith, which is in essence now Franklin Quest. So I have a very sort of interesting process I go through, and I use that as a to-do list, and then I leverage that off of everything that I learn is about planning into the future and then breaking it down into smaller and smaller and smaller bits. And that's what I do. And I have this whole, ABC thing and 1, 2, 3, and it all based on priorities and all those kind of things. So it's an interesting thing I've done.
Oh my goodness. Now I'm totally intrigued. I want to know more.
Okay. We can talk about it later.
I think we need to. I want to know more about this system that you've created. It sounds fascinating. And we are all about systems here. Like, we love to know how we can work more efficiently. So maybe I can ask you a little bonus question later on. You can tell us a little bit more about that system you've created. And tell us, what's one book, podcast, or blog that you'd recommend and why?
Yeah. So I read about 40 to 50 books a year. So picking one is not easy. But if I had to pick one, the latest one that I really think is great, because I'm a bit of a contrarian in general, and it's called 9 Lies About Work. It's written by Marcus Buckingham and Ashley Goodall. Marcus Buckingham used to run Gallup, and now he's part of ADP Research. It's a really cool sort of breaking conventional wisdom book.
Excellent. We'll grab the link and pop it in the show notes. And before I go on to the last question, tell everyone about your upcoming book launch in 2020.
Yeah, I never thought I would ever write a book, but here I am. I'm about 3 months away. I'm actually trying to get it ready so I can bring some to the show. But it's going to be tight. I'll do my best to get it done, but there's a lot of editing and things and such. So it's called Further Faster. It's the vital few steps to take the guesswork out of growth. It's kind of an 80-20 book, if you will. There are lots and lots of things that you can do for your business, but there are a few things that really propel it further faster, if you will. And I just focus on those things. It's sort of about first steps. If you're going to really focus on your business and try to have it grow in a flourishing way, then there are about 3 main things you need to do, and a couple of sub things under that, and that's all the book is about. It's very instructive. It has a whole web page that's associated to it with exercises you can do and supporting resources that will go with it. So the do-it-yourselfers can just read the book and then go and do the exercises themselves. And they wouldn't need a coach like me to at least get them that far. And it should get them a long way. It won't get them all the way to, where most destinations are for companies in terms of being healthy and thriving, but it'll get you a long way relatively quickly.
That sounds excellent. We love practical guides as well. So what we will do is we will stay in touch, and when the time comes and your book is launched, we'll make sure that we update the show notes for all of the FBP family. And I just want to circle back and let everyone know, when you mentioned the show of course is URSA 2020, because you're going to be speaking there. Team, I put a link in the show notes so that you can check out the session that Bill is presenting at URSA in March. Let's move on to our final question in the pre-call quickfire 5. And do you want to just give us a really quick summary of the topic that we're going to be focusing on during your main interview?
Yeah, sort of related to my first answer, but when people ask me what do I do, I help leaders and their teams take the guesswork out of growth. Most leaders are sort of relying on an extreme amount of effort and some luck to keep the business going. And as I mentioned earlier, that's not necessarily the way you have to do it. There are great systems out there that you can use that are proven. The companies that last great amounts of time, generations and centuries. If you look at this, and I've been studying this for about 30 years, they do the same few things really, really well. And that's what my book is about, is just let's focus on those really few things that work really well. I'm what's called an essentialist, if you will. There's actually a thing called essentialism. And to sum it up, it's that we believe that few things truly matter, but those that do matter tremendously. And your job as a leader is to figure out what those few things are and stop worrying about the trivia, the unnecessary things.
Bill, I'm so excited to get into this topic with you. So thank you for joining us for the Precore Quick Fire 5 today, and we'll see you next week for your main interview.
Great. See you then.
That interview with Bill is coming up in episode 277, out February the 19th. So make sure you tune in and join us. This week's Rewind segment is another business-focused episode. The episode was called How to Create Leaders in Your Business, and our special guest was Mark Miller. During the interview, we talked about what a leadership role should entail in a gym environment, ways to identify future leaders in your business, how important it is for a leader to work in various departments during their training, and ways to develop leadership qualities in your team. If you missed that episode, then head along to today's show notes at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, scroll down and click on the link for episode 266. On Thursday, March the 19th, 2020, you'll have the opportunity to join friends and colleagues at the annual FBP Family Meetup at URSA 2020. Starting from the lobby of the Convention Centre at 6:30 a.m, we walk and talk for 60 minutes, sharing experience, ideas and stories. Everyone from the FBP family is invited, and we would love for you to join us on the day. We would also love to know who's coming along, so please jump over to fitnessbusinesspodcast.com, go to the top of the page and click on the tab called Meetup. Then register your details for the URSA Walk. If you need any more information, please email me directly at chantal@fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's show. And of course, a reminder that all the resources and links for today's episode can all be found at fitnessbusinesspodcast.com. Thank you to our foundation partner, Active Management. Active Management are a fitness business coaching company that help clients all over the world. And this month, I have a business tip for you all. Join the Active Management Facebook community. It's an amazing group, and you'll meet like-minded fitness owners and managers from all over the world. All you need to do is go to facebook.com/groups/Active Management Community. It's a highly engaging community where JT from Active Management shares loads of resources. Things like photos from inside gyms, reasons to exercise, a monthly book club, challenges, and even ideas under $50. It's free and it is an awesome community. Once again, just go to facebook.com/groups/Active Management Community. Thank you all so much for joining me for this week's episode and for all of our New Year's Resolution Series 2020. Enjoy your week ahead, and remember, what you leave behind is not what's engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into lives of others.